Which is the passion isn't some manufactured thing,
right,
where you sort of find the passion and do what you're passionate. You know, passion is an output, not an input. And what we hear is somebody finds an obsession for something and that then becomes their passion. And the same is definitely true, I'm sure, for you and definitely true for me. So the thing that I'm sort of obsessing about right now is friendship. There's an entire industry to help us be better leaders. There's an entire industry to help us be better parents. There's an entire industry to help us eat better, exercise better, sleep better, and yet there's barely anything on how to be a friend. And if you think about all the mental health challenges that so many of us are facing today, whether it's coping with stress, depression, anxiety, addiction, even obsession with longevity, friendship is the ultimate biohack that literally fixes all those things. The sacrifice was lopsided. And I think, especially for high performers who I think later on in life, you start to realize that that network of friends sometimes isn't there because you've sacrificed. You know, the number of us who have canceled on friends because a meeting comes up, because they'll understand, right? And yet the reverse is very rarely true. That we'll say to somebody for a meeting, can we meet on Friday instead of Thursday? Because in my calendar, we wouldn't say it, but in my calendar is a friend. And definitely for me, the times where I have tripped, slipped, fell, hit rock bottom, felt alone, any of those spaces, my work wasn't going to rescue me. And it was by the grace of some higher power that there was always a friend who saw it and recognized it in me, who picked me up. And so I realized that we talk about investing, we talk about, you know, and this is a different kind of investment. I want it to be the reverse. I want to live with the people I love, and if it costs more, and by the way, by cost, I mean that maybe I won't achieve that thing, or maybe I'll miss that deadline, or maybe I'll miss that quarter. You know, it's a different kind of sacrifice. We think of sacrifice as always against people, but I can make a sacrifice for my career, for my friends. And it's about striking that right balance. Because your friends will be there for you, your work won't. If we have close friendships, and if we live in community, perhaps we're less susceptible to all addiction. And I know that there's a lot being talked about the addiction of social media, the addiction of cell phones, which is true. Which is true. It is a highly dopamine-producing device. And that it's causing loneliness. And I would argue that if we worked on the friendships, and more important, if we taught our children how to be friends, that perhaps they are less likely to get addicted. When you talk about what's the global responsibility, we're teaching people how to do everything. You know, we're finding the hacks for everything. The one thing we aren't doing is the old-fashioned, hard, slow thing of making friends. And most people think they're good friends. If you ask most people, are you a good friend? Most people would say, yeah, I'm a good friend. And so I said, have you sacrificed that meeting to hang out with a friend? Do you call your friends on their birthday and sing them happy birthday, or do you just put a thing on social media saying happy birthday because you saw everybody else put it on social media? You know, when a friend is depressed, do you go over to their house and climb into bed with them and sit and watch movies and eat ice cream all day and be depressed with them? You know, have you done all those things? Have you ever said to your friend, I love you? Not love ya, not love you, I love you. Have you done those things? Are you a good friend? And the way to prove that those things matter has anybody ever done that for you? When you've been depressed, have they come and just sat and been depressed with you? Not trying to fix you, not trying to pull you out of the mud, just been depressed with you. Have they said, I love you to you?
Right.
I learned this from a friend of mine, but what really stood out was the first time we got off the phone, and he ended the phone call with, I love you. Again, not love ya, not love you, I love you. And I remember what that felt like. And I felt hugged, I felt safe, I felt that I knew that I could tell him and be anything, and he wouldn't judge me or look down on me. And it was so powerful that I decided to start experimenting and saying it to the people who I loved. But you live a life where you're away a lot, you're on the road a lot. I mean, your career necessitates you to be on the road.
Right.
How has that affected your friendships? More important, what have you done to maintain the closeness of those friendships with the crazy life that you live? I didn't want to burden you. I didn't want to bother you with my problems. And I think people don't realize that we don't build trust by offering help. We build trust by asking for it. And it is more amazing to have an amazing experience with someone than by yourself. You can go do it by yourself and say, look what I did, versus, do you remember that time we did that? And I think that especially for leaders, and I think leaders bear greater responsibility because people follow their leaders.
Yeah.
So goes the leader, so goes the organization. So goes the leader, so goes the country, always. So goes the parents, so go the children, right? Put your phones away. Mom and dad are on their phone the whole time at dinner, right? And I think if the leader publicly said, I just want everybody to know it's Monday, Friday I'm leaving a little early, it's my friend's birthday, and we're going to go celebrate, you'll find people prioritizing their friends more. I think it's a leadership problem.
I think it's something we all have to work on.
The same thing is happening at work is happening in our relationships. So it used to be where we sort of had bowling leagues and we got our community from there. We got our sense of belief from church. Work was the place we made our living. We had barbecues with our neighbors. And over time, those things have disappeared. And now we demand of our work that you be the place of purpose. You be the place of community. You be the place of my social life. Now you be the place that matches my politics. We're putting all this pressure on work to fulfill every desire I have. And we're doing the exact same thing in our relationships, which is we seem to abandon those outside places, and we're asking of our partners to be everything all the time, always, which is an unreasonable and unfair standard to put on someone or be put on us.